Hello and welcome to the FAB Conversations. FAB is Families and Business. Today, we're having the FAB conversation with Dr. Vishwas Puttige, who's part of the Ace Micromatics team. It's a unique group, and we'll talk to him about the uniqueness of the group. Vishwas is an engineering professional with a doctoral degree in the field of automation and adaptive control systems. So here is Dr. Vishwas Puttige. Uh,
Sure, please.
So Vishwas, you're part of a very unique group because when you talk about Ace Micromatics, it's a group of different individuals who set up independent machine tool companies in different times, some of them going back to 40 years, who came together and formed a group with cross holdings. So to me,
Yeah.
it's a very unique form of a company, and I don't know how many of them these kinds exist in the world. So tell us a little about how did these disparate group of people come about? Is it really as unique as I think it is?
Oh, it's much more unique than what you think, Sonu. I think the very interesting part is, with all due respect, families are bound to, they bond together, whereas here you choose your friends. The beauty of the group is like-minded people came together out of a design institute and said, let's start a small designing company, which was called as Ace Designers. This was way back in 1970s. And then at a later point in time, two more gentlemen joined together in the group, and the original founders started another two companies in the 90s, one in the 80s and another in the 90s, to form multiple types of companies. So three of them who started the group, one of the first ones, which is Ace Designers, they also decided to start two more companies at a later point in time. And the promoters of each of those companies ended up becoming, again, a part of the bigger family. So together it's actually a group of 5 families who are today, who form the Ace Micromatic group. We call them very proudly as founding fathers of founding families, and fortunate to be a part of one of the families here. So that's how it ended up coming together. Yeah.
This is actually quite unique, and in the many years that I have worked with and read about family businesses, this is truly a unique concept. And maybe you could do some research and tell us whether this is the only kind of its in the world, or whether there are like 5 more companies in the world like this. But
Yeah.
to have non-related people, work together for these many years, I think it is a testimony of the relationship that the founding fathers, as you call them, and also their families share with each other, which is so important. Now, so you grew up
Absolutely
in this kind of business environment where you had you saw not only your dad but your dad's close friends also working in the same group. So you know did it ever cross your mind that you were not going to work in this family business, or had you always wanted
Oh,
to?
it has always been on my mind. No, I always, for me, just to avoid any complacency to set in, our father, me and my sister, our father always made sure that he kept us away from the happenings in the company. Though we were a part of it growing up, we would listen to people we knew who would come on board. Even in the offices, the companies work very closely as a family, which means we have a family atmosphere where all employees are treated as family members. Even today, we don't have a categorization of a workman cadre, the engineers, the management. There's very, very less hierarchy. People are treated more like a family. There's the senior most person is like the head of the family, and then you have everyone else is like the members of the family. There's no differentiation in the uniforms and everything. So we've kind of known most of the older employees of the company. As and when they joined, we would hear about them, we would understand, we would know about the opportunities that were given to them and the contribution they did to the company. So we were very much involved, but it was never discussed that at some day it was never thought of like a throne that someone would come and join and take over. Even today, it's never the case. We are only professionals who also happen to be a part of the family, and only meritocracy works here. There's no way that we have any ability to prove that we get to be where we are if we don't perform and contribute. So we are accountable to what we are doing. Only that has made us what we are.
Yeah. So you studied your engineering here in India, and then you went to Australia for a master's. And at some stage, you also got your doctorate. So that we'll talk about in a bit.
Sure.
I am sure that you had a lot more opportunities to explore your professional growth in. What led you back to working with Ace Micromatic Group?
So in my final year of engineering, I started appearing for placements. I started giving interviews for placements. And once that started happening, we had a serious discussion with Dad. And Dad was very keen to say, hey, look, you could probably learn a lot from the company, because I put in a lot of effort, and I believe it's a wonderful place to work. For me, it was something that was a big no-no. I was like, no, this is not something I want to do. I mean, I have better things to follow. I'm from an electronics and communication background, and I always want to do something on robotics, automation, and fields like that, which was a lot more complementary to what we are currently doing. The kind of machines that we do has automation or robotics come in as a supplementary or complementary process. So I was keen on that. So that also came up telling, why not look at that as one of the potential areas where I could probably work in and specialize. And then before I could realize, I was kind of convinced, telling that it makes more sense to be a part of the group and learn, understand, because there's so much that we could probably learn and eventually contribute. So that is when I decided I'll do that. But my dad was an MTech way back in the 60s from IIT. He did his MTech. So for me, he had set the benchmark quite high, and I was keen on trying to do better than him, at least to start off in education. So I had to go do something for myself outside and see if I could do more than that. So that's where the master's and then the doctorate came in. But yeah, so I was kind of convinced, telling that when I did my bachelor's, when I'd done my bachelor's and when that was done, and during my master's and my doctorate, I was clear. I had a very clear agenda as to what I'd want to do, how much time I had, and what happens after. So though I did get tempted, there were interesting opportunities back in Australia also in terms of what can be done. I was able to hold on to that, and then realize that what I have for me, and then I made sure I returned back to where I belong.
Yeah. So again, two questions. So the second one is about your doctorate, which you can answer later. But you are in a unique position where you have founding fathers who are not related to each other. But there are many family businesses where the patriarchs of the business are related to each other. They could be brothers, they could be cousins, they could be father, son, and the third generation are the inheritors. And it usually takes a lot of convincing among the patriarchs to get to agree to the role of the inheritors. So what was the process in your group like? Did your father have to convince the others? Were they open? Did they have any apprehensions about you coming back into the business? So just talk a little about that.
So it's a very interesting question. So now I'm a part of a bunch of 7 or 8 second generation members of the family, and we have a very interesting. There are a couple of them who are senior to me, who are older than me, who happen to get inducted much earlier, much sooner. So in our case, there's a very strong encouragement for the family members to come back and then be a part of the business, though though we don't play very active roles in terms of the operational aspect, but there's a very strategic positions that each one of us take up and focus on and then contribute. So there was absolutely no hesitation, because it is, we've all believed that it is a legacy that has to be continued for many generations. And there's a very strong encouragement, unless the children would want to do something else and prefer to stay as just, shareholder. They're highly encouraged to come back to work and then contribute to each of these companies in whatever capacity they can. So there was no apprehension at all by any of the other members, and they have seen us grow. So they've seen us as young children. So they've known how we've been brought up. So there's always been a very positive feeling towards that.
So you did say that your father typically kept you away from the business while you were growing up.
Correct.
So would it be fair to say that you really didn't know, what was working in the business like? And therefore, did you have any expectations when you came back as a professional to work in the business? And then, corollary to that, was there a mismatch between the expectation and the reality?
No, in fact, I had absolutely no expectation when I went to do my, when I did my further education, I was clear as to what I have to do and what I wanted to do. And I knew whatever work it'll have to be from the ranks. I'll have to grow from the ranks, and I'd probably start from the lowest possible rank that would suit my education. And that's what ended up happening, where I ended up spending a lot of time in research and development, and then found something more interesting and more necessary for me to switch to. So I came with a very clean slate without much expectation, did not, we are never been taught to believe or expect a lot of respect that we demand. We've always been taught we need to command it, we need to earn those. So there was never a feeling that I need to be treated in a specific way, which is different compared to others. So that's the way we were brought up, all of us. I speak for all of us. So there was no need. I've known people who've traveled in the regular, some of the other family members have traveled in the regular company buses for an hour up and down each without having any other, I'd say, luxuries. But of course, the necessary comforts were there. So that's how it has been for each of us. And which has been quite good. Those value systems were imbibed into us, with all due respect to other families. But I'm sure I've seen the kind of golden spoon or the silver spoon that children are otherwise pampered with. But we've been fortunate. I can't guarantee that for our children, but at least we've been fortunate that the founding members have really worked their real hard way up. And they made sure we understand the importance of the company, and not just, we are not here just for profits or the money, but to ensure the sustenance of the group and the legacy continues much beyond us and our children. So that's what has been imbibed into us.
That's really good to hear. And I'm sure there are a lot of family businesses, and especially the inheritors of the businesses, who can take a lesson from what you just said about expectations and about, commanding and demanding respect, the difference between the two. So before anything else, tell me a little about your doctorate, and how difficult was it to do a PhD, and how long did it take? And do you use any of it now?
Oh yeah, very interesting question. So so my doctorate was, I was always keen to go abroad and do my doctorate. So Australia was a good option for me, though it had to be a master's first, because it's very difficult to get scholarship. So during my master's, I had an option to convert it into an honors degree in the university that I was doing, or I had an option to switch to another university. I was one of the fortunate guys to get a full scholarship from the University of the Australian government. So it was a government sponsored PhD where I didn't have to pay any tuition fees, and instead they gave us money for a living. So that happened because I was a part of a defense academy. So the defense department was keen on doing research in certain areas. So because of that, it was a 3-year course for the whole PhD. And then we had an extension that was available for another 6 months. I was fortunate that my supervisors, the project that I worked on was very interesting, and I was able to get that done in the 3 years plus writing work of another 6 months. So 3.5 years was sufficient for the PhD work, and I was able to meet the requirements and then complete the whole course in 3.5 years. But it was wonderful. I mean, the whole research life was very interesting for us because one, we were students and we had all the freedom to do what we wanted to do, and we were given that freedom because they saw us contributing. And it was, of course, the biggest learning I'd say from my doctorate was one, the research, the content, the learning specific to the technical aspect, but the interpersonal skills, international people, meeting people from all around the world. We've had people from a lot of them from Europe who would come there to do their research. We had a lot of people from many other Asian countries whom we'd interact with. And far from America, we had a couple of students. So interacting with each one of them, and it kind of opens our minds to the borders, and we feel a lot more like an international citizen than confined to what we are and limited to the borders that we are actually grown up in. So we've that exposure, I'd say, is priceless. That even today, if I decide I'd want to go now do that, I never get that window. So I believe that time required to spend after your education, while we are a lot more malleable, where we can learn that, we can unlearn some of our unwanted premonitions that we've had and grown up with and learn newer things, I think is totally worth it. But my doctorate part of it, what I worked on was on using adaptive control systems for nonlinear systems, basically into doing autonomous automation and control systems. That's basically what it was all about. So I did get to do some part of it as a part of the main company that I've worked for almost 10 years. Now, for the past 3 years, I've been a part of a new startup in the whole group that I've been fortunate to be heading or leading. And that we are using quite a bit of that activity. We've even gone ahead and patented a couple of concepts that we've developed, and we're working on that. So though not exactly same, but some of the learnings have come handy in my current work of area of work.
Yeah. So, your group, Ace Micromatic Group, is the largest machine tool group in India, and it's among the top 50 globally. Can you tell us a little about the group? What does it do?
Yeah.
And what is your vision, yours and your other second gen? What is your vision for Ace Micromatics?
Right. So very interesting question. So Ace Micromatic Group, they make CNC machines, which are basically, we call them as mother machines. So they're into manufacturing today. Anything that has to be manufactured in metal would directly or indirectly need machines like ours. So the largest consumer of these machines are the automotive, because today that's the backbone of any country's industry or the manufacturing sector. So bulk of the automotive components today are made on machines like ours. So where you have any part that needs to be scooped out or removed to give it that final shape, be it your engine part, your pistons, your brake parts, etc. So each of those would need machines like ours. Each of those, I mean, there are different types of machines. So the three main product verticals that the group manufactures, they are the that's about the 70% of the total machine tool requirement of India in terms of the technology spread. So the three main principal companies manufacture these. One is Ace Designers, the other is Ace Manufacturing Systems, and the third is Micromatic Grinding. So the three companies do these. That's what the principal companies do. And then the newer company that I mentioned, there are 2 or 3 new companies that have been brought in more from a technological diversification perspective. So about 4 or 5 years ago, when we decided what could be a potential disruption for us, I mean, we've been hearing about disruptions coming very strongly. So just like how the automotive combustion guys are concerned about the electric vehicles that could come in, on the same line, there was also a concern of what would happen to the future in case newer technologies come in. So we wanted to befriend our foe and say, what is in it for us? And we got into this technology called 3D printing or additive manufacturing. So right now, I'm a part of this startup where we are into additive manufacturing, which is in fact which was considered as a disruption for the traditional business or traditional manufacturing, but we believe now it's more so going to be complementing the traditional manufacturing rather than displace them. So they're going hand in hand, where customers could choose either or the newer, the futuristic ones probably would want something on these lines. So it's still in a nurturing, I mean, it's in a very small incubation stage. We believe there's a very strong potential. But to answer your specific question about what do we envision as the future, honestly, there are more than 5,000 families or stomachs, or the people that the group feeds. The goal of the group is to make sure we sustain this irrespective of the product or the technology. We need to make sure that continues and grows for many, many more years. And today, the most important concern or the need that we see is to make sure it's a very volatile VUCA. I mean, we call it VUCA world where we live in. So to be able to sustain, I mean, grow is one, but even to be able to sustain the kind of performance that we be doing and make sure we, in spite of all the complexities and the competition that is there, if we are able to maintain and then continue on this, I think it's a big achievement. So we are focusing on making that happen. And also we are looking at very strong diversifications from a geography perspective, from technology perspective, and multiple product line perspective. So each of those we're trying to diversify. So we make sure we don't focus on a very small area, but also widen our capabilities. So that's what is happening right now from the second generation perspective.
I think from what you've just said, my takeaway is the fact that you are looking at the role of the family business patriarch as more a steward, responsible for not only his family, but for the families of the people who are working in the business. And I think it is something which many families, I think somewhere in their quest for profit and growth, they kind of forget that they are also responsible for the livelihoods of the people that are associated with them. So more power to you, and wish you more for this. But you talked about the largest customers being the automotive industry. And, you know, the last year and a half has been terrible for the automotive industry. And you know, as professionals, as business people, we all have a disaster management plan. Did you have a disaster management plan? Did it work? Did you have to tweak it? How did you, A, as a business, and B, as a family, deal with this pandemic? Or how are you dealing with it, since we are right in the middle of it?
Right. So the very interesting question. We did put together, we do have a scenario planning that we had worked on where we had identified some of the scenarios that probably could come, and we'd had to de-risk from them, but we had not anticipated something as harsh as this that could come in. We were never prepared for a situation where we, from the hardcore manufacturing sector, would have to work from home and enable facilities and have them available. But we did do it quite successfully. We were able to move a lot of our hardware equipment home. We would get people to take them home and then make sure all remote connections were established. At least for some of them, we were able to do that. We tried using the time for a lot of skilling, training, making sure our suppliers, not only our employees, our suppliers, all of them were kept updated and take care of how their well-being was. And once we reopened in the month May last year, we brought in all sorts of cares and checks to make sure that they were kept safe and healthy. And that part happened from the personal perspective. But from a company perspective, it was a hard year. It was a very challenging year for us. Though our dependence has been largely on automotive. Fortunately, ever since 2009, we realized our over-dependence on automotive could be risky, and we did diversify into multiple technologies or the market segments like aerospace, the mold making industry, the defense sector, education sector, the energy sector, each of these. So though automotive still is the largest guzzler of our technology, we have consciously put more effort in promoting and developing each of the other I'd say sunshine sectors or other markets which have been also growing. But that is only a smaller contributor. Still, the bigger chunk comes from automotive, and we did find it difficult. But a lot of people who've been doing exports have been growing. They've been doing well. So our customers would make parts for customers outside India, have been investing in machines. But when it opened up in September, we saw a huge surge in the demand for about 4 months till the second wave hit us. So we believe it's only a matter of time, and this will continue. Now people will come back to investing, and the demand will continue to grow. So we are hopeful.
Yeah. And this is your personal view. Personally, how optimistic are you about the future? When you think of the next year and the next 5 years, what are your thoughts about that? How do you think we are going to do?
Right. So the next immediate year that we see is again going to be a bit of a blip for us in our growth charts. Not only us, but I speak for the whole country. There are very few areas of people or sectors who've either been focusing on healthcare or been doing something for the very niche areas who've been in good demand. I think overall the industry is still going to be suffering a bad time or the year. But I strongly believe this is going to be done with 2022, and from 23 financial year 22 and 23, we are going to be seeing an upward swing going ahead. And a lot of the manufacturing, which was already in the pipeline from coming from all around the world into India, is only going to grow faster, and people would invest more in India. And we believe the decade is going to be for India in terms of manufacturing, which we also see a lot of it resonating with the kind of investments that are happening. Yeah. That have been opening up for manufacturing in India. So we strongly believe it is going to be giving a tough time to our Northern Asian country that we share the border with. So I think it is going to be the year of India, decade of India, this going ahead in the next 5 years.
Yeah, so Vishwas, in Hindi, there is a muhavra that says "Aapke muh mein ghee shakkar." That means that whatever you say, I hope it comes true.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Times of gloom and doom, we do really need a bit of optimism. So I cannot end a conversation about family and families and business without talking about your family. How has your family dealt with the pandemic? Were you all together? Were you in different places and you came together? Were you sick of each other by the 6th month? Were you happy to be together? Did you learn a new skill? Have you started cooking? Just tell us a little about how have you as a family man spent the year of the pandemic?
Right. So I spent a lot of time with my immediate family, which is my wife and my 2 children. So I did get to spend quite some time with them during the last year's lockdown. But what happened, interestingly, is the immediate family of ours from a business perspective is my father, my sister, and myself. We 3 are associated with the company. So one of the major concerns or the complaints that we've always had with our fathers is that he's been a workaholic all his life. He's put in, on an average, about 13 to 14 hours a day for nearly 45 years of his life. So growing up, we had that as a complaint, telling we never had a time to go to with you. I mean, we never had a dad time. So even now, being a part of the same company, there were many aspects that we couldn't work on because he would be very engrossed in the routine, I wouldn't say operational, but his passionate aspects, and not find time for some of the other strategic aspects. So this year has been excellent for us, the whole of 2020. And continuing now, he's opened up to thoughts of spending time more focused on something that is a lot more lateral, something different from what he's always been passionate about. So that's something that happened really great for us. So we've been able to spend, I'd say we bonded a lot more in terms of how we could take the 3 of us could do a lot more towards the strategy and many other futuristic aspects about the company and the group, which helped us quite a lot in these 15 to 18 months that we've had the lockdown for, or the pandemic for.
So did your children also, before the pandemic, have the same problem with you, that we don't see enough of dad?
I think they continue to have that problem because I was at home only for about 20 days last time and about a week this time. So I still continue to work because, as I said, ours is a small startup and it needs a little more nurturing and care, and it's hard to do it remotely. And plus, we also work with aerospace customers and healthcare customers. So we have the necessary permissions to go out and work. So we have been using that opportunity to cater to those requirements without missing out. Though we did shut down for a couple of weeks earlier last month, but we've been working. So the complaint still continues by my family.
And so you were not one of the many people who learned how to bake bread during the pandemic.
My wife is excellent at that. She leaves me no room to do any of that. So while, when someone's cooking or baking, someone has to empty that, right? So I've been her guinea pig. So she's been doing well and trying it all out on me.
And be appreciative of the cooking. Otherwise, the cook is not going to cook.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Vishwas, thank you so much for your time. Pleasure chatting with you, and wish you all the best, not only for Ace Micromatic Group, but also the young startup that you have. And hope to continue the FAB conversation sometime in the near future, in person, face to face. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sonu. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Nice.